Play, the development and evolution of the forgotten position. I think if you look across all levels of baseball and softball, outfield is one of the most lesser taught and underdeveloped positions in our sport. We have hitting, pitching, infield, and catching coaches, but very rarely do we find outfield-specific coaches. So my passion for outfield play stems from being a former outfielder myself, transitioning into a coach, and having the moral obligation of that coach to train our outfielders as adequately as possible and break the stigma of just hitting fungo fly balls to them. So early in my coaching career, I was afforded the opportunity to utilize resources such as data and video, as well as watch other sports movement patterns to help develop drills to create the most realistic training environments an outfielder can experience. So throughout this presentation, you'll see videos of drills from different places and players that I've coached, as well as where I am currently. But without those places and players, I wouldn't be where I am now. So I just want to pay homage to them throughout. So in order to set the foundation for our outfielders, we must first build an identity. And I've come up with 5 components that I feel create the most complete outfielder. And it starts with ball security and having a ball-first approach. Proper glove presentation when our below-the-waist and above-the-waist approaches, as well as glove positioning, fall under this category as well. The second component would be efficient footwork in routes and angles. The third being situational awareness, giving our player the autonomy to make the decisions. The fourth component is the throwing component, to make accurate, precise, but the correct throw. And lastly, for us coaches, is to develop daily and weekly drills and routines and being able to track and quantify that progress. So getting into our below and above the waist approaches to what I feel is the most conducive way to set up the post-catch throwing footwork patterns. So the below-the-waist approach. This is what I personally feel is the most beneficial approach to set up the post-catch throwing patterns I like to call the pro step. After doing a lot of research for many years, I come up with one specific trait, and it's the post-catch throwing footwork patterns that a lot of Major League Baseball players use. So these are the checkpoints that we like to follow. The keys here in the approach is the arm side leg, the glove depth is in front, not back. Our glove side leg is back, and our arm side leg is forward. And we want to make sure throughout the pro step, the toes stay tight to the heel to keep our direction in line. Just a rule of thumb that we have getting into our above the waist approach, but it's seeing the top of the baseball and not the bottom. If I can see the top of the baseball as I'm approaching a fly ball, I'm creating momentum before the catch. If I'm seeing the bottom of the baseball as I'm approaching that fly ball, I usually have to generate momentum after the catch. So the above the waist approach. The post-catch fielding patterns are the exact same as the below the waist approach, but here our setup and catch are a little different. So like I just said, we want to get behind the baseball. We have a slight body turn. Our glove should be center to our arm side, just so we can have a quick and efficient transfer. And now our glove side leg is in front and our arm side leg is back. So the pro step advantages, why do we do it? A pro step creates force vertically, a crow hop creates force vertically, whereas a pro step creates force towards our target. Time spent in the air versus time spent on the ground. A crow hop does not create distance and direction. A pro step does. And lastly, a pro step allows our arm and body to become in sync naturally. Catch play routines, they're essential for our players to be in the correct throwing positions. Here we have a very simplistic, but it's extremely necessary catch play routine. either before or after our throwing program. So during our throwing program, our players go through the entire pro step routine. And then once the throwing program is completed, we work through our below the waist approach of a ground ball, a glove side, a backhand, and a switch foot backhand. Then we progress into our fly ball approach, or above the waist approach, which is a fly ball, a glove side, a backhand, and a switch foot backhand. Pre-pitch routine, being on time every time. So in a 3.5 to 4 hour baseball game, only about 8 to 13 minutes are actual gameplay. So this allows the mind to wander. There's a lot of time. That's okay. We shouldn't expect our players to be locked in for 4 hours. It's unrealistic. So if we create a zone in front of our players and tell them, hey, we got to get in and out of that zone to refresh mentally each pitch, as well as we want to be able to develop a pre-pitch routine that is comfortable for them, but also something that they can repeat. So our checkpoints is we want to have anticipation, we want to have movement, we want to be descending in an athletic position so we can move laterally, we want a slight body lean, and we want to be able to repeat it. We also practice stepping in and out of the zone before each drill. So switches is a glove presentation drill that's a spin-off of Kai Correa's infield switches. Here, we're just trying to get the body and the mind in sync. We're also working on our glove presentation and approach. So we have 4 different glove variations to this drill, which are neutral, glove side, backhand, and switch foot backhand. We also have 4 different variations to the drill, which is rolled ground balls, short hops, long hops, and fly balls. Lane work, I just want to touch on this briefly to understand our direction from left and right, and then I'll revisit this slide when we get into our throws. So in a player's lane would be arm's length plus 2 to 3 feet. Outside of a player's lane would be outside of that 2 to 3 foot range. So dry work on backhand and glove side spins. Here, we're working to optimize the post-catch footwork patterns. Oftentimes, in these situations, players tend to take extra steps, creating more time to get the ball back into the infield. So our backhand has 2 different variations, and they're both dictated by the pace of the ball or the speed of the runner. So for the first backhand, it's a slower paced ball or a slower runner, where the outfield can rake through, with a shuffle, just much like an infielder would. The second variation to it is the switch foot backhand, which is simulating a faster paced ball or a faster runner, where the outfielder has to catch off of his glove side leg, replace his feet, and throw. When executing the glove side spin, we want to be able to field in the vicinity of the glove side instep, stay in a low athletic base, and replace our feet, much like we're hopping over a hurdle, which we use here for physical and visual constraints. Both movement patterns here are designed to maximize efficiency. Half moon and V drill. Here we have 2 different cone progressions. So for the half moon drill, we're working on a ball that's in our lane still, where our player can get around. Then we kick the last cone out, and we call it the V drill. This is a ball that has a little more pace, where now the infielder has to either glove side spin or switch foot backhand. So progressions. This is essentially 12 drills in one within 3 series. So progression 1 would be in a player's lane. Here we have ground balls, choppers, line drives, and fly balls. Progression 2 would be out of the player's lane and to the right with a ground ball, chopper, line drive, and fly ball. And the last progression is out of the lane and to the left with a ground ball, chopper, line drive, and fly ball. So here we're working on a ball first approach. We're trying to cut the distance and get to the ball as quickly as possible, but still have our good footwork patterns. And you'll notice a lot of these guys, especially in the ground balls, is they're completing their pro step footwork. They're not just catching and finishing the drill. As a coach, for the line drive and the fly balls, we just want to make sure when we cue our players that when you turn your shoulders as a coach, they break. This cleans up the sloppiness and the guessing work from your players. So same pace, depth variation. Here we set up cones 10 to 12 yards apart. We set up a hack attack here. We set up a hack attack for ground balls with top spin. And we shoot a ground ball at the same pace at each depth to each cone. So here the goal is to create the same footwork patterns and glove timing at each depth. It also allows your players to figure out the correct footwork from slow to fast-paced ground balls. Drop steps right and left. Andre Butler said it best. When we're performing a drop step, we want to be able to slide a sheet of paper underneath of our players' feet. So here we're just exaggerating drop steps to the left and to the right at different degrees to transition to a more fluid drop step in game. Drop steps with head snaps. This is usually a batted ball profile that's hit over the player's head with fade or slice. The emphasis here is for the player to keep his chin from shoulder to shoulder, not letting the shoulders sway the body. That misaligns a player, and make sure the eyes stay up the entire time so he can locate the ball. Drop steps with DB hips. Usually this is a batted ball that has fade or slice but is hit in front of a player. So here we want to maintain a low athletic position with our hips square to our target through our hip hop. I just call it a DB hips because it kind of reminds me of defensive back making an adjustment in his route as the wide receiver is making an adjustment in their route. So drop steps with false step routine. So not every drop step is going to be perfect. Not every batted ball profile is going to be ideal. So blending false steps in your drop step routines help players build a recovery system. It also keeps them athletic. It takes the robotics out of a drill and your players. I witness oftentimes that the initial drop step is not always the correct drop step. So I prefer to use this type of drill and randomizing rather than the conventional way, just due to the game-like traits. Partner reactionary drop steps. Here, I just took this spin off from Coastal Carolina strength and conditioning coach Nick White. This is a cool drill, breeds athleticism and competitiveness. Here, one partner dictates the drop step and the other has to follow in that direction. We can increase the difficulty both mentally and physically by adding false steps to it. So a rule of thumb that we have when a player is en route with a baseball is to keep the ball between your chest and home plate. So more times than none, batted ball profiles have slice or fade. If that ball starts to fade or slice over your head, if we can make an adjustment en route to keep that ball between our chest and home plate, it helps our catch probability. Running form is essential for our outfielders. Swaying arms sway the shoulders, which then sways the head and then sways the eyes. So if we can just stick a football, here we just stuck one in our player's arm. You can do two on both and instruct your player to pump his arms up and down rather than side to side. You can clean that up. And we all heard the old adage, run on the balls of your feet. It's true. Young players often run heel to toe, which bounces their chin, bounces their eyes. Just instruct your players to run on the balls of their feet. So the square drill is one of our most used drills. Here we're working on a ball first approach. We're working on our footwork efficiency, drop step, route and angle efficiency, as well as 3 different batted ball profiles. So in this drill, we have a ground ball. The second variation is a line drive. The third is a fly ball where the player has to get around the cones. And then the fourth is an unconventional, which is just a mix of everything. I usually like to tell our players that we're going to mix so they're not guessing. Why reaction drill? This promotes fast twitch drop steps based off of a reaction. Here as a coach, as that player is coming towards you, about 2 to 3 feet before he gets to that cone, you direct them in the spot that they want, or that you want them to go. They don't know it, so just keep guessing by randomizing. The wheel drill is a route and efficiency drill, route and angle efficiency drill in a 365-degree compass. So here we're just working on line drives and fly balls at varied depths with varied angles at varied speeds. This drill can be taxing on players, so give them time to come back to the drill and work on an efficient drop step. If they're rushing through their drop step, then you're defeating the purpose of the drill. Over the shoulder catch is a progression that I like to use. It's not necessary, but one, it breaks up the monotony of a practice, and two, it just gains familiarity with the pattern. So the first progression is just a football and over the shoulder catch, just a patterning type machine. The second one will be bare hand and tennis ball for acute focus and hand-eye coordination. And then the last would be throw on our gloves and we go. FLACCO'S, modified FLACCO'S, and Willie Mays. So I'm a Ravens fan, so I'm going to probably have to change this to Lamar's. So in the FLACCO'S, we want to get our outfielder a low sinking line drive, a lofty fly ball in the gap, and then a deep ball that we track down. I would highly recommend getting on the Jagger long toss program for this one. For the over-the-shoulder catch, modified FLACCO'S, it's 3 continuous over-the-shoulder type throws. In talking to my outfielders, this is one of the most uncomfortable plays for them, is to go straight back on a dead sprint and try and catch a ball over their shoulder. So this just kind of gives them that recovery. And then the Willie Mays speaks for itself. It's one no look over the shoulder. I like to use this at the end of training sessions. Guys love it. Z drill, reverse Z drill. This is just a line drive type drill to work slant routes at different angles, at different speeds. It also helps your outfielders just be athletes. Bermuda triangle drill. This is a drill it's a sinking line drive type drill that promotes lateral and forward quickness, as well as first step efficiency on those sinking line drives. So here we're working 4 different types of setups. The first will be a neutral. The second will be split right. The third will be split left. And then the last one will be prone in a push-up position. The reason why we do this is to just work to eliminate false steps and to get the player in an uncomfortable position that he has to figure out how to get the baseball. This drill, to me, instills some sort of confidence in a very second-guess type play. So oftentimes you see a player pull up on this play. It may not happen in a game, but if we can try and instill more confidence in this play, maybe he takes a shot and go gets the baseball. 6-zone reaction drill. This is a first step efficiency and reaction type drill. Here, you're just instructing your player that they have 6 zones that they can cover. 3 behind and 3 in front. And as a setup for the coach, you want to get about 3 to 5 feet away from your player. You want to hold the ball out in front, and you flip to any side that you want to go. And then you watch their footwork while he's watching the ball. You want to make sure that he reads and reacts. So back to lane work with our throws. So again, in our lane would be arm's length plus 2 to 3 feet. They can take a shot outside of that 2 to 3 foot range, throw to the cut. There is a lot of gray area there, but that's the basis of it. So 90-90 rule. Player has to be 90% sure on a ball in their lane they can make the throw to get the lead runner. If he's not 90% sure, he has to give up that 90 feet, put his pride aside to keep the back end runner from advancing 90 feet. So essentially, we're trying to keep the double play in order. D-drill is a throwing drill that can be used in an individual or one-on-one setting. I think it's all-encompassing as far as batted ball profiles and throwing components. Here, our player has a series of tasks, 6 tasks that they have to go through. Throw 1 would be a fly ball in their lane where they throw home. Throw 2 would be a ground ball in their lane, they throw to third. Throw 3 would be a ground ball out of their lane, throw to second. Throw 4 would be a dead ball, cut to home. Throw 5 would be a ground ball out of their lane, throw to third with a cut. And throw 6 will be a dead ball, cut to second base. Once the drill is completed, you can flip it, so they have to go to the opposite side. 3 throw series. Here we have a throwing progression drill where our outfielders are making 3 throws to 3 different bases in different throwing lanes. So prior to the drill, we just instruct our player that we want clean, efficient footwork in our pro steps. We want our throws to be low and through the cut, either in the air or on a long hop, giving our receiver a ball that they can make a tag on. And we want to prevent the back end runner from advancing. Here we don't have any runners, but that's what we're simulating. So in this drill, we had 3 catchers anchored down at 3 bases, and they were working on tags with sliding dummies. So series 1. Left fielder has a long single down the line, throws to second base. Center fielder has a ball in their lane, throws to third. The right fielder has a ball in their lane, throws home. Series 2, left fielder has a ball in the left center gap, throws to third, simulating a first to third situation. Center fielder has a ball in their lane, throws home. And the right fielder has a long single, throws to second base. Series 3, left fielder has a ball in their lane, throws home. Center fielder has a ball, we split the gaps, throws 2. And the right fielder has a ball down the right field line, or in their lane, throws to third base. So throwing decisions is a drill my manager this past season, Larry Day, came up with. It's awesome. Decision-making drill based on not just the situation and scoreboard, but also the speed and location of the runner, as well as the speed of the batter and the pace of the ball that is hit. So here we just yell out the situation, we yell out the runner location, we yell out the batter speed, as well as the runner speed, the score, outs, and inning. This is a really good drill to develop conversations with your player afterwards, to figure out why they may or may not have taken a shot in a certain situation. That way, when those situations do occur in the game, you have a better understanding where your outfielder's mind is. So batted ball training. For me, this is the most realistic opportunity to train each position differently based on the likelihood of batted ball spin profiles. So we have 4 different types of spin profiles. I won't get nerdy on you with the exact spin axes, but I'll give you a visual of them. So we have 4 different types: a top spun ball, a back spun ball, a right-handed slider type spin, and a left-handed slider type spin. Don't think Corey Kluber, Randy Johnson type sliders. It's more of a cutter profile, but from the depth from home plate to the outfield, it comes off as a slider. So for left fielders, 83% of the time they're getting a right-handed slider type spin. 25.7% of the time they're getting a top spun ball. 23.7% of the time they're getting a back spun ball. And 2.1% of the time they're getting a left-handed slider type spin. For center fielders, 52% of the time they're getting a top spun ball. 45.5% of the time they're getting a back spun ball. 20.6% of the time, they're getting a left-handed slider type spin. And 15.3% of the time, they're getting a right-handed slider type spin. And lastly, for the right fielders, 77.4% of the time, they're getting a left-handed slider type spin. 27.2% of the time, they're getting a backspun ball. 22.1% of the time, they're getting a topspun ball. And 1.4% of the time, they're getting a right-handed slider type spin. So here we're creating an environment based off of what an outfielder actually sees in game, so we can train them differently based off of their position and the likelihood of what they're actually going to see. Here we just use a hack attack, and we manipulate the spins for what we want to see or what we want to train in that training session. Direction training. Here we're using data to determine which batted ball profile takes that player in the appropriate direction. So this is important for a couple different reasons. The first being we want to figure out which direction and spin profiles are the most least and successful for players. The second being we want to train each position differently within the same drill settings. You may have a specific left fielder or a specific right fielder. So here we have green representing ground balls, red representing line drives, and yellow representing fly balls. So for example, a left fielder receives a ground ball to his right at 47% of the time and 27% of the time to his left. Flip it to the right fielder, he receives a ground ball at 32% to his right and 40% to his left. So if we combine this information with our batted ball training, we can put our outfielders in the best opportunity to learn and succeed differently individually without actually playing the game. Fungo tee or soft toss. This is a fun alternative for breaking up just monotonous fungos. So here we're simulating live reads. We're adjusting depths with shallow, intermediate, and deep. We're also mixing batted ball profiles. So missed hits are okay in this type of situation. Outfielders are working on their pre-pitch setup, direction, routes, and angles, as well as the ball flight simulation. It also gives us coaches to think we still got it. Live reads is what I feel is the best way to match game-like settings. We can drill the crap out of our players. We can come up with awesome drills. We can throw out machines. We can do whatever. That all builds the foundation. That's great. But nothing really replicates the way the ball comes off the bat, like in BP or live reads type settings. So we can make live reads more challenging by mixing depths, shallow, intermediate, deep. We can also split the outfield in different sections and tell our outfielders, hey, we have this section to get to today to catch everything that we possibly can. We can also vary setups to help with jumps and footwork patterns. We can track during BP as well and live reads. So when I was at Lander University, I just came up with a very simplistic type chart. We track 1 to 2 times a week from the fall all the way through the spring. We would essentially take, if we had managers, we'd take the managers and stick them on different players, or we just take pitchers that I trusted and stick them on their players. So again, it was a very simplistic chart. It's a tally system of opportunities, plays made and what they were, and plays not made and what they were. So I pulled this chart. It's hard to see. It's from January 18th, 2017. In one BP session, our outfielders had 198 opportunities. And that's just one. So again, we tracked from the fall all the way through the spring. We can also track in-game. So during spring training and extended spring training, we had our bench coaches with a chart that tracked batted ball, the play type, whether they made the play or didn't make the play, the catch difficulty, subjective, but still gives us an idea. The throw type, whether it was a long hop, short hop, on the fly, or just completely airmailed it. and even if they backed up the base or not. So creating a daily and weekly practice plan, this can help structure and organize a plan of attack through a designed database. Here we have a progression of tasks we use to build up in our training session, and it starts with primers, just getting the engine going. A couple examples of a primer would be switches, our dry work. Then we go into our primer plus. The engine's rolling. This kind of is the main task for the day. A few examples of that would be ground ball progressions, in and out of their lanes, half moon, V drill, any drop step variations. The next one would be game-like reps, which would consist of either the T and FUNGO or spin profiles, batted ball training. And then lastly would be our throwing component, which would either be their actual throwing program, or if you chose to throw to bases during that day, 3-throw series, D-drill, decision making. So, as I stated earlier, setting the foundation, it can build the identity for your outfielders. Once the identity is created, hopefully this bleeds into your culture of your program of what is to be expected from your outfielders. Thank you guys. This is a tremendous honor. I can't even put into words. I got maybe a couple of minutes, but thank you to T.I., Berkey, T, my family, Cleveland Indians organization. Thank you.
How you doing, man? Can you talk just a little bit about the daily and weekly practice plans? I know that it's tough to try to get guys to buy into being prepared and stuff like that. So I just want to know kind of how you
Yeah,
prepare
so we basically just set it in different from the lowest variable to the highest variable and what we want to accomplish during that day. So I made the reference of starting a car. Like, you wouldn't just start the car and go. Let it run a little bit. So we do, something that is relatable to our main task on the front end, and then we can tie it all together. Like, if we're doing progressions, ground ball progressions, the main task would be the progression part, but then the game-like reps may be T and FUNGO from home plate where we're hitting ground balls to them, or ground ball with spin profile out of the hack attack. So we just try and go from the lowest to the highest variable and mix in between. That's all translatable.
Hey, JT, can you go into a little more depth on your throwing routine for the outfielders? I know you kind of touched on it, like when do you do those after they long toss or before? And then the other thing was, do you teach any kind of, how do you teach the kind of a read step or any kind of a preparation when they first are reading the ball off the bat?
So for the throwing program, we kind of give our players just the autonomy to do it whenever they want to do it. So, you get half that want to do the footwork patterns beforehand, before they get their arm hot, and then the other half they want to wait till they're done. And we don't really. Now, granted, we're working with a different player, but if I was coaching college again, I would instruct our players to go through the entire progression, whereas our guys just want to work on what their deficiencies are during that day. So if they lack a good glove side spin, that may be something that they hone in on. And then what was the second? Yeah, so the 6-zone reaction is kind of like what we want, the ideal. So infielders and outfielders are different. So infielders have to react quick and go. Me personally, I don't think an outfielder should react quick. I think they should read and then react. We have outfielders where they react quick and then they're readjusting their routes. So I would prefer a guy to react or read the play first and then react. That way the footwork, the first step efficiency is a lot better.
With regards to your throwing routine on a daily basis, do you have any suggestions in terms of like ball and glove where you're simulating, a fly ball versus a ground ball before they're incorporating their long toss. And then part two, going back to when you coached at Lander as a college, I'm a high school coach, so I have guys that play different positions than just outfield. So my question is, would you possibly have earlier days of the week where you're working more throwing to bases because they may have a pen, they may be doing something else versus ladder? And if you had any experience with that at the college level, which I'm not sure if you did, if you had 2A guys.
Yeah, so with the throwing program part, I like to go ball and glove with a mixed spin. So a lot of times guys like to have a four-seam grip, and they put that in their glove. So if we can just tell them to spin the ball and then have that ball in the glove, and then they figure out how to get the seams. And then as far as the kind of the dual player, I've never really experienced a dual player. And to me, it's throwing to bases is all dictated on the throwing program that you implement, and how many days you actually want to do it. You have to get a really good feel, I think, for your players' arms and the health, as well as what you set in place as far as your throwing program.
You talked about on backhanded balls, ground ball, fly ball, the switches versus open stance. Do you have a specific scenario in which you want them to switch or not switch, or is it all dictated by the ball? And then do you ever have guys slide to cut balls off in the gaps or the alleys?
Yeah, I mean, as far as sliding, I would prefer a guy to stay on their feet unless it's the last possible scenario to do it. But yeah, as far as the regular backhand or the switch foot backhand, that's all dictated on the speed of the ball. So if it's a slower pace ball, like I always just simulate like a ground ball down the left field line. If it's slower pace or if it's a slower runner, a guy can just rake through it. Whereas if it's shot down the line, a guy has to just, I mean, obviously he can't rake through that. So I just like to do both just because both do happen in a game. So just training one way would kind of be the opposite of it.
Thank you. I'm a travel ball coach. At what age would you suggest introducing some of the analytics regarding those spins to kids? Because that's going to be a little bit, it might be drinking out of a fire hose for them. Yeah. But at what point would you suggest introducing that? I mean,
I don't know. It kind of depends on, I think, the age and if you have the resources. So, I mean, if you're using a hack attack or a junior hack attack to get different kinds of spins, I mean, I don't know what it's like in travel or little league or younger ages, but I mean, I'm sure that there's different spins. Just to give a player something to see other than just always a back spun fungo or a top spun fungo if the coach mishits it. So I just like to use that as different variabilities to kind of just get them familiar with what they're actually going to see in a game.
Could you talk a little bit more about drop step footwork and things that you kind of preach as far as with your outfielders and proper things and things that you see that are, you have to correct? And obviously you got a different level of player than a lot of us are dealing with, but things that you've seen throughout your career.
What specifically on like the drops?
Just the initial footwork after the read that you see things that, and if you have any specific drills other than, what we kind of talked about in the deal that, you kind of work on that.
Yeah. So, I mean, when I was a player and even like as a coach early on in my career, I always used to teach the drop step where you just stay back and there was a foot planted. But I mean, that's not the realistic type of drop step. So again, it's a delayed read and then it's flipping of the hips. And again, I like to use the false step movement just because, it allows your players to flip and then realign. Does that answer your question?
Other than BP and the FUNGO T drill, are there any other batted ball drills you use?
Yeah, the hack attack. So we take the hack attack and set it up at home plate or down the line and just mix speeds. We can also do soft toss. So one of our coaches can soft toss to your guy. That also gets a player in a good pre-pitch setup. But I feel like the tee and live reads and with all of that, they get a pretty good understanding of it.
Hey, Coach. Talking about fly ball glove positioning, it looked like from your videos the glove is more around the front of the face compared to off to the side. Can you speak more on that and your philosophy behind that? And then secondarily, how far away is the glove? Is your glove arm locked or bent, and kind of the philosophy?
Yeah, I think in an ideal world, you would want it around this area, center to off center. That, again, in an ideal world, if you're just sitting camped under a fly ball, that's where we want to be. That also has to do with our body positioning being slightly turned. So if I'm here, but my body positioning is slightly turned, it kind of gives that perception as well. What was the second part of your question? I'm sorry. Yeah, I like it bent. I just like something with flexibility and to be here. So I want that glove to kind of get into the shoulder or the ear area for a transfer.
So I'm from Michigan, so it snows a lot. So what kind of drills would you do indoors to kind of replicate batted ball drills? Because we don't really get a lot of time before games start.
Right. So I mean, I was from Maryland and I was a high school coach as well. So I did basically all of those types of drills in an indoor setting as well. You can do reactionary drills with wall ball. You can do the glove presentation stuff with wall ball. We actually still do that with the Indians with wall ball. And then anything, I mean, I grew up in a gym, basically like a basketball gym in Maryland. So we did drop step routines. We did all that kind of stuff indoors.
Any other questions?
So, excuse me, picking up on that last question, did you take that, how do you take that to a competitive level then? Indoors, I'm another northern guy. All right, and they talk a lot about making stuff as competitive as you can, as game-like as you can. How do you take that to that level then, those drills?
That's a good question. I think that puts onus on the player. You know, you're giving them the drill, you're giving them the opportunity to work on deficiencies. I think it's up to the player to take it as competitive as they want. As a college coach, it was if you're slacking off in the drill, like, how's that going to translate into a game-like situation? If you're in pro ball now, like, that's your career. So I don't know if you can breed competitiveness, but I think it just puts more on the player. I don't know.
So you talk about your daily routine with outfielders. About how much time are you spending with those guys every day?
So as a college coach, it was like 20 minutes. In pro ball, it's a little different. We can, we don't have restrictions, so we can go 20 to an hour. We can do individually, like whenever they want to do it. In a season, we're usually working around 30 minutes. Out of season, we're still working around that area. It's less reps in pro ball and more about being as efficient as possible. So, we may do 5 ground balls, but it's going to be the most intense 5 ground balls that they've ever done for the day, just because that's their career and that's what's going to keep them going. So I would even translate that into college or high school. Like, hey, we have 5 reps today. Like, how good can we get in 5 reps?
You mentioned, I think it was your last slide or second to last slide regarding your charts that you would do for attempts or balls at the individual player. Can you maybe go into that a little bit in depth about what each category is, whether it's put out, assist, good angle?
Yeah. So it would be batted ball profiles. So it would be your ground ball, your line drives, and fly balls. It would be the direction that they went. So it was literally just a tally. Like, if they received the ground ball to their left, we would just tally ground ball to their left. If they made the play or not, with a little note box to saying what happened in that situation. It is pretty in depth, but I mean, think about the amount of times an outfielder gets a play during a game. It's not as much as an infielder, as well as backing up bases, throw types, what type of throw it was. Was it an accurate throw, not accurate throw? I'm trying to think off the top of my head of exactly what it was. Yeah. No, we would use a bench coach. So like I did it. Our bench coaches would do it. It's hard to track every game, but you just get a better understanding of your player, and then you can kind of translate it into your training sessions and see if there's a correlation.
Do you do any drills at the wall or the fence utilizing that?
Yeah.
Can you speak on that a little bit?
So do a lot of balls off the wall as far as, a ball that hits the wall and it's caroming back. I like to teach embracing the ball, like using the ball's momentum instead of picking it up and then using your own momentum. So as that ball is carrying them back from the wall, you're shuffling with the ball, usually on the inside part of your leg, as well as if it's a dead ball, picking it up on the outside part of your leg, not wasting any steps. So if we pick it on the outside part of our foot rather than the inside part, we can just pick it up and go. If you pick it up here, it's hard to just throw from this position. So you usually have to take an extra step. If I can just pick it up here and go, you're not going to throw anybody out. You're trying to get the ball back into the infield. And then as far as like going up against the wall, yeah, we did stuff like that. I just watched Ken Griffey Jr. a lot, and the way that he would always go up against the wall would be and he would protect himself, would be taking his elbow to his knee. So when we do wall drills, that's just the emphasis, is when we catch, we want to embrace the wall instead of planting up against the wall.
Give me some ideas of, I'm a high school coach, and we have 15 to 20 outfielders generally in our program in a year, in a given year. If you, and we generally will spend 20, 25 minutes in a given day on position-specific defense. With that many people and that limited amount of time, like what would be the things that you would emphasize the most to get the most out of that 20, 25 minutes?
Yeah, it would probably be footwork patterns first and foremost, as far as your drop steps and your throwing patterns. But for me, one of the biggest things is throwing decisions. So putting them in situations where they have to make decisions, or creating environments where they have to make decisions. I think especially in the lower levels of, Little League all the way up through high school, the decision making is almost non-existent now. They just make the throw just to make the throw. Where it gets more strict in college, and then in pro ball it's everything. So I would try and get situational awareness and just having them think before they have to actually make the play.
JT, can you go in a little more detail about the pro step and how you teach the pro step to your players, if that's kids that are used to doing the crow hop?
Yeah, so it's the post-catch footwork pattern to your approaches. So the reason why I like to go glove side leg back on a ground ball, and then arm side or glove side leg in front on a fly ball, is it just sets the arm in sync with the body. So, and a lot of times you see drills where outfielders are catching ground balls here, and that's fine, but they're usually not throwing after that. If they throw from this position, it's usually like really fast, and your arm can't get in time with that. So if I'm here and I come through, now I'm setting my direction with my shoulders. I'm here with my lower half in a powerful position. I have videos of Clayton Kershaw, Trevor Bauer, they're all throwing like this when they're trying to get their long toss or their pull downs. So you tie that in with the approaches as well as here. So if I'm here, now I catch this way. If I'm this way, now I have to bring all the way back around. It's just, it mainly focuses on your direction of your upper half in correlation with your lower half, and then the efficiency and the power. So, if you step in front and drive off, it's a lot different if you step behind and drive off. Now you're in your back hip. So it's more powerful. It puts you in a better position directionally and creates force into the ground.
Any other questions?
Hey, Coach, with the throwing arm leg up, and you're attacking a ground ball to the fielder's left. One thing I've experienced with that is players were stepping and kind of cutting off the ball and feeling like they're not in a powered position fielding the ground ball. Can you speak about how you talk about getting around or how you attack that ground ball to an outfielder's left when they're coming in on it?
So like, yeah, so I want to try and, so actually I had this conversation with one of our players the other day. So your initial step sets your direction. So if I get a wide step, I'm going to have to figure this out. And this is not in a really good position. So if I can get here and then come back around, kind of like how we did with the V drill, it gets that player's direction. You're essentially cutting the distance and cutting the time as quickly as possible to get your body and your hips back into a line. I mean, I don't know what other way to perform that rather than in like that half moon or V drill, and just emphasize getting to the ball or so we have middle cones, getting to that middle cone as quickly as possible in your direction. So your throwing direction should be where you are as a coach rolling those ground balls. If they can get back to that, then they're in a pretty good spot.
Anything else?
Hey, Coach. Just a question on in your lane balls, right at them, kind of do or die type of play. We got guys that'll go 110% through the ball, miss it. And then we got the guys who are going to, kind of just scuttle up to it. Any cues you got with what's the ideal for something I can give every outfielder that this is what we're going to do on this particular ball?
Yeah, so we do certain drills where, so my cue to them is to start slow and then just explode through. So the first initial steps will be slow, 1, 2, and then I'll literally get on the back hip of a player and follow them. And as they're approaching that ground ball, push them through. And if, they're either going to figure it out or they don't, they're either going to fall on their face or they're going to try and get in those correct footwork patterns. That's to the extreme, but that's how I've done it.
Got anything else, guys? Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.